Shalom from Israel to all of the Daystar viewers around the world. I'm Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer and founder of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 25:5, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long." And God says in Zechariah 8:16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak out the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment to peace in your gates. And always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, the Palestinians are continuing to use international forums to circumvent direct negotiations with Israel. The Palestinians are now trying to become members of the International Criminal Court in the aftermath of their failed attempt to gain statehood recognition in the United Nations. The official Facebook page for the Fatah party featured an image of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with a noose for hanging in an apparent celebration of that decision. The symbol of the ICC adorns the bottom of the picture with the caption, "Coming soon." Both Israel and the United States are weighing punitive measures against the Palestinians in response to their unsanctioned unilateral moves. Aaron has more on that story.
Yes, Yochanan. The Jewish state has begun to implement measures against the Palestinians for taking unilateral steps for recognition from the international community rather than dealing directly with Israel. The government froze more than 500 million shekels of tax revenues that it collected for the Palestinian Authority in the month of December, which is equal to around $125 million. Jerusalem is also considering bringing war crimes charges against Palestinian officials. Washington is also considering the possibility of suspending aid to the Palestinians because of their bid at the International Criminal Court against the wishes of the Obama administration. American law stipulates that if the Palestinians use membership in the ICC to make claims against Israel, U.S. aid to the PA must be cut off. The United States provides more than $400 million in annual financial assistance to the Palestinian Authority. The Ramallah leadership remains defiant despite these indications, and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has even released a statement saying that the Palestinians intend to repeatedly resubmit the resolution to the UN Security Council, calling for the removal of all Jews from Judea and Samaria by 2017 until the resolution ultimately passes.
The Fatah party of Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas celebrated the 50th anniversary of the group's first terrorist attack last week. An image posted on their official website showed the Fatah flag planted and flying over Jewish skulls. The radical organization has become increasingly vocal in its public support for terrorism and lone wolf attacks. Their website praised terrorists and even stated that in the aftermath of the deadly Har Nof synagogue terrorist attack, Fatah members handed out candy to celebrate the massacre of Jews.
The Israeli Shin Bet security service has declassified information related to the arrests of 3 Palestinians affiliated with the Islamic State terror group in Hebron. The suspects were arrested in November after they threw a bomb at an IDF army convoy. The group's leader, Ahmed Shahada, confessed to a range of planned terror attacks, including the abduction and killing of an IDF soldier with the intent of using his weapon and uniform to perpetrate more murderous attacks against Jews. The 3 men have been indicted by the Judean military court. A security official told reporters that the ISIS ideology is gaining traction in Palestinian villages and that the Israeli government is studiously watching these developments closely.
Hezbollah leaders are attempting to unite Sunnis and Shiite Muslims against Israel in an effort to bridge the rift between the warring factions of Islam. Sheikh Nabil Kaouk, who serves as the top cleric on Hezbollah's executive council, boasted to reporters that the resistance is preparing for the next war with Israel, and thousands of our Sunni brothers in Lebanon will be among the ranks of the fighters.
An Austrian filmmaker has uncovered the remains of a clandestine underground atomic weapons facility operated by the Nazis. Andrei Sulzer made the discovery by scouring war archives that included transcripts of a 1944 CIA report in which an American espionage agent claimed knowledge of a secret atomic weapons program that had been conducted at an underground facility in Austria. During an interview with the Sunday Times, Sulzer said that the subterranean tunnel network led to the Nazis' atomic weapons bunker, he described as most likely the biggest production facility of the Third Reich. He went on to say that prisoners from concentration camps, including physicists, chemists, and other experts, were handpicked across Europe for their special skills, and they were forced to work on this monstrous project.
Israel has caught and arrested a gang of antiquity thieves in what could have been a scene out of an Indiana Jones movie. The anti-robbery unit of the Israel Antiquities Authority had been conducting surveillance of the group of Arab vandals for more than a year. The thieves had been searching the caves near the Dead Sea in hopes of finding ancient scrolls to sell on the black market. A statement released by the Antiquities Authority said the suspects had been digging in an ancient cave that is known in archaeological circles as the Cave of Skulls. They caused tremendous damage to artifacts by digging through layers of archaeological strata. They destroyed 2,000-year-old historical evidence from the Roman period, as well as 5,000-year-old relics from the Copper period. The 6 Palestinian thieves were found to be in possession of a 2,000-year-old comb, as well as digging equipment. They could face up to 5 years in prison for illegally excavating, causing severe damage to archaeological remains, and irreversible damage to archaeological strata.
The HarperCollins publishing house has apologized for omitting the State of Israel in an atlas that it recently circulated. Company officials admitted that the Jewish state was removed from maps and atlases sold to English-speaking schools in the Middle East because they said they were concerned that the actuality of Israel's existence would offend so-called local preferences. In place of the Jewish state, an area was labeled as the West Bank, a term commonly given to Palestinian-controlled areas of Israel. Both Jews and Christians protested the move as offensive and demanded that the publishing giant apologize. In response to the severe backlash from the Bishops' Conference, the Council for Christians and Jews, and the Anti-Defamation League, HarperCollins decided to pull the book, and it apologized. The company released a statement saying that it regretted the omission of Israel from the Middle East Atlas and promised that the product was removed from sale in all territories, with all remaining stock to be destroyed.
We are happy to report that Mohammed Zoabi is alive and well after taking refuge in the United States. Mohammed Zoabi was an outspoken advocate for the Jewish state this summer during the war with Hamas in Gaza. He released a series of webcasts condemning the Palestinians for terrorism and calling on Arabs to join the IDF and become members of Israeli society. The 17-year-old Zoabi suddenly disappeared after receiving death threats from angry Palestinians, including his own relatives. Israelis wrote articles asking what happened to him, fearing the worst. We now know that he was cared for by a Christian Zionist who helped him move to the United States. He recently posted a letter online thanking his friends. He reiterated his support for the Jewish state and described himself as a proud Israeli Zionist Arab Muslim.
The Israeli Defense Forces welcomed its newest members last week, among them a young girl whose story moved the nation and became a symbol of the inhumanity of the Palestinian terror campaign. Shinee Vinter was just 6 months old when a suicide bomber targeted Cafe Apropos in Tel Aviv. Her mother, Anat Vinter-Rosen, had taken her to the restaurant on March 21, 1997, to meet with her close friend Yael Gilad on the eve of the Purim holiday. Dressed as a baby clown, Shinee was sleeping in her stroller when the bomber detonated his explosive device. Anat quickly shielded her baby with her body, and Shinee survived with just shrapnel wounds to her leg and to her hand. But her mother, Yael, and one other person were killed, and 48 others were wounded. After Shinee was discovered beneath the rubble, a journalist snapped the moving photograph of the infant clown being carried away from the scene in the arms of a young female police officer. That image has since become an iconic memorial to the innocence of terror victims in Israel. The officer who delivered her to safety on that fateful day accompanied Shinee to the Army Induction Center in place of her mother. Staff Sergeant Ziona Bushri said that memories of that awful bombing remain with her until this very day, and that she will never forget the moment that she picked Shinee up and ran to search for her family. As Shinee began her military service, Bushri said, Here she is today, that baby that we all remember has now grown up, and that she continues to embrace her and pray for Shinee's success.
North American immigration to Israel is up 7%, according to figures from 2014. 60 new immigrants, or Olim, returned to the Promised Land on New Year's Eve, making 2014 a record year for immigration to Israel. In all, more than 22,650 Jews came home to Israel from around the world last year. The youngest was a 20-day-old infant, and the oldest was 98 years old.
More than 1 million Jewish children have been killed by abortion in Israel since 1948. Israel is currently engaged in a demographic war for its very survival as a Jewish state. Imagine what a difference 1 million more Jews would have made for Israel. Friends of Efrat saves the lives of thousands of children every year by providing support to pregnant women in distress. Since 1977, Efrat has saved over 30,000 lives and is recognized as a world leader in preventing abortions. You can play a major role in Israel's survival now by helping us save Israel's unborn children.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein, and we're here on another beautiful day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is David Harris, Director of Research for the Israel Project. David, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
David, tell our viewers a little bit about what is the Israel Project?
The Israel Project is an American non-profit. It was set up in the aftermath of 9/11. One of the main things that we do is to work with journalists, explaining to them about Israel from the Israeli perspective. We don't hide, we don't have a hidden agenda. We're called the Israel Project, and the journalists like to work with us to try to better understand Israel's story.
We see in media around the world a huge bias against Israel. You know, even when we're attacked by terrorists, they seem to try to make the picture look like it's our fault. Where is that coming from?
I think that there is an understanding of the region that has now been built up over the last 30 to 40 years, much the same way that many people in the world wake up and say, oh, North Korea, evil country. I mean, do we know that North Korea is an evil country? No, we've never been there. And for many people, Israel is the same thing. They hear that Israel is the occupying force and so on. And until they've been here, until they understand the story, that is what they think is the truth.
Well, let me give you then a concrete example. We had a terrorist attack in Jerusalem where a 3-month-old baby was murdered by a rampaging terrorist who drove over the baby and killed a young woman at the same time. Associated Press ran the headline, Israeli police shoot Arab Palestinian because we killed the terrorist after he did that. So that can't be a miscommunication or that we're not getting our message out. That seems to be a bias.
I think you've got to judge each case on its own merit. I suspect that mistakes happen. I'm sure that there are individuals who will wake up in the morning and will have a hidden agenda, but you've got to realize there's a whole process. Also, the journalists are working very fast today because of the internet. They have deadlines every 30 seconds, every minute, and mistakes happen that way, and the level of accuracy. I mean, I grew up in the BBC. I was a journalist in the BBC before I moved to Israel, and I can tell you there, before we had the pressures of the internet, every single headline, every single comment went through editor after editor before it went to air. That doesn't happen today, and mistakes happen. In addition, and as I said, to the individuals, and very few individuals who maybe have their own agenda.
We are the only free democracy in the Middle East here in Israel. We have rights, religious freedoms, gender rights, freedom of democracy. Really the only country in the Middle East that has these rights. Then where is this idea that we're like a North Korea evil power? You know, I've not been to North Korea, but I know they have the working camps there. I know they're murdering people. I know they have no freedom. I mean, those are facts. Those aren't my opinion. So where is that perception coming in the international media?
Let me to some extent, challenge it back to you. I mean, I agree with where you're coming from, but the only reason that you know that is from media. You haven't been there, you haven't seen it. I mean, we're not meant to be talking about North Korea now, but it brings up a point that we, as individuals, buy very easily into arguments. So if it's about North Korea, if it's about Russia being evil, as far as the Arab world is concerned about, or at least Iran is concerned, about America being the great Satan, these are things that are built up, that they've got no basis, no evidence in fact, but they become beliefs. And if you talk now to people across Europe, they think of Israel as being the bad guys. If you look at polling, you'll find that far more Europeans are supportive of the Palestinians than they are of what was traditionally the David in the story of David and Goliath, the state of Israel.
But wouldn't this be seen then as a media agenda? The media is portraying us as the bad guys. That's why the polling is showing that the people are seeing us as the bad guys. So why are the media portraying us as the bad guys? I know why they are in North Korea. I've seen the victims of the regime come out and speak to the media about what's happening over there. Where is this narrative coming from Israel?
Well, we're going down a line that I really didn't want to go into, but I mean, there are Israelis on the left these days who do speak to the international media and make all sorts of accusations. We're in a very difficult situation in Israel because of the freedoms, because of the openness, as opposed to Syria, where they're butchering their own people, Yemen, where there's been a civil war raging for 20 years, Libya and a variety of other countries in the Middle East, in Africa, to say nothing of what happens in Latin America and so on. We're in a very difficult position because we open up our doors, we are a democracy, and as a result, the things that we do are magnified. And yes, we know that the world has had an obsession with the Jewish people for the last 2,000 years. And so when we do something wrong, and Israel does make mistakes because we're a thriving democracy, just like the United States, just like the United Kingdom or France or Australia or anywhere else in the world, Israel makes mistakes, but those mistakes get magnified and blown out of proportion because of the openness and freedom of this country.
David, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
First of all, thank you for your support. Keep supporting Israel because, as I've said over the last few minutes, it's not easy. We are the only democracy in this region. If you're looking for information, the Israel Project, as many other organizations, is a very good source of information. If you're looking for our blog, you'll find it thetower.org. Thetower.org, all the latest information and analysis on what's happening in Israel.
Thank you, David, for coming on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
It is heartbreaking to learn that there are over 40,000 abortions in Israel every year, many of which are due to financial concerns. The Efrat organization saves the lives of thousands of Jewish children each year by providing support to pregnant women in distress. Please help us save thousands more.
Up next, shining light from Israel.
No matter how you feel about the United Nations, it's the one place on planet Earth where nations get together and attempt to speak with one voice. That's why their resolutions can make a big difference. So when people all around the world see that approximately 40% of the UN Human Rights Council resolutions were against just one country, most of us would assume that country must be a really bad place. Perhaps ruled by, say, a genocidal dictator who kills his own people, or maybe a tyrant continually threatening to annihilate another country. But actually, the country that has been condemned more times than every repressive country on Earth combined is a democracy. The only viable democracy in the Middle East, Israel. And with these repeated resolutions against Israel, it's easy to see why so many in the international community perceive Israel as a major cause of world problems. But are all these resolutions really justified? Because whether or not you agree with how Israel is handling its many challenges, when you do a basic comparison, like the number of deaths Israel is responsible for with the number of condemnations they've received, and then make that same comparison with other countries, it paints a surprising picture of a possible double standard. What could explain the enormous imbalance? Quick history lesson. In 1975, Cuba needed to gather support in order to take down the biggest democratic superpower dominating the global schoolyard, the United States. Seeing how the UN was mostly controlled by the democratic superpowers, Cuba, along with other communist nations, finally found a way to even the playing field, because it just so happened that, at the same time, a number of Muslim countries were looking for new, creative ways to gang up on Israel. So the communists realized that by joining the Muslims' anti-Israel coalition, they could create an unstoppable voting bloc inside the UN. Because with every resolution they passed against Israel, they simultaneously discredited Israel's ally, the United States. So in 1975, the newfound communist Muslim voting bloc spearheaded the passing of a UN resolution that officially stated, "Zionism is a form of racism." Yes, Zionism, the movement trying to find ways to protect Jews from racism, was redefined as racism, which is kind of like saying the civil rights movement is racism and Martin Luther King is a racist. This is why resolution after resolution after resolution against Israel from 1975 until this day easily passes through the UN. But today, this movement has a new tool for attacking Israel as the cause of all our problems: the UN's Durban Review Conference on Racism. Durban is charged with finding the real root of racism, and at the last conference, keynote speaker and human rights best friend Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, yeah, the guy who openly called for Israel's annihilation, revealed that Zionism is not only racist, but the true root of racism throughout the world. And what has history taught us about what tends to happen when one ethnic group is believed to be the hidden root to all the world's problems? What is happening at Durban is catastrophic, not only for Jews, but for the whole world. And it's growing, spreading, and gaining credibility through Durban. Let's learn from history and this time act before false accusations lead to violence. We cannot leave this message unchallenged. We need your help.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
You know, the other day I was just thinking that everything that I have and everything that I know how to do, I learned it from someone. Just the same way I'm walking right now. I learned it when I was born, and then after that, I observed my surroundings, I observed my parents, and then I just learned how to walk. The same way when I went to school, I learned how to read and write because my teachers showed me how to do that. You know, in Philippians 3:17, Paul is talking to the church and saying that imitate me, because Paul was imitating Jesus. So Paul was telling to the church that we need to imitate Jesus, and we need to have mentors. We need to have people who guide us on how to live our lives. You know, in Proverbs 4, we can read that the Word says that the Word will give you insight and wisdom to your life. In Hebrews 4, you can read that the Word is sharper than a two-edged sword. So surely the Bible is the best guide in how to get to know what God wants you and me to do with our lives. Just the same way I'm driving with a car. My driver's instructor when I was younger taught me how to drive because I was following his instructions. While we're driving in our lives, we need to be looking all the time to our surroundings. We need to be looking at others. We need to be looking at the threats and opportunities that life brings us every single day. While we're looking at what's happening out there, one of the important things that we should be looking at is Israel. Because God has used Israel since day one in His plans, and He's still using Israel. So there are certain things in the spiritual life and even in the physical land of Israel that are happening at the moment which will affect our lives, because the Bible says that. So while we're driving our vehicles, we're driving our lives, we need to be looking at our surroundings, and one of those surroundings is Israel. So now when you're driving the vehicle of your life and you're looking at your surroundings, God will place people in your vehicle. Because we as Christians, this life is not about us, but it's about us serving others, just the same way Jesus did. Ephesians 5 says that we are not supposed to sleep, but we need to arise. Just the same way when we're driving the vehicles of our lives, we cannot sleep because we will simply crash. And that's what we're trying to do with Arise, to wake up the new generation and the current generation to live fully for God and to understand the purposes of God towards Israel. So stay connected with us. Go to our website, arisegeneration.org. From there you can see our awesome online magazine, which is Arise Now, and also our weekly radio show, Arise Base. You can also come to the land of Israel and experience it all by yourself and enjoy it from the 15th to the 25th of July in our Arise Summer Tour. So God bless you from Jerusalem, and I hope to see you with us. What an exciting place to be, what an exciting place to visit. I'm talking to you about the land of Israel, the place where Jesus was born, and Jesus did his full ministry and went up to heaven. We'll come back one day to this very same land. Now you have the opportunity to come and visit this place in the Summer Tour 2014. This place is colorful, it's tasty, it opens the Bible in a new way, and it is very diverse. I will give you a small tour. Now we're in the desert. The beach. Culture, history, big city life, awesome food. Israel is not just camels, hummus, and desert. Israel is also modern society. And one of the examples is the city of Tel Aviv, having beautiful beaches like this. In the summertime, these beaches are packed, and you can enjoy also this beautiful beach when we come to the summer tour, to this exact same place.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.